It's time to talk about the Feathersword in Unicorn Overlord for true ZENOIRAN. So what is this thing good at? Well, in late game, honestly, it falls off. It's almost impossible to get these things contributing because they just lack certain attributes, certain stats, certain abilities, and the weapon type they're on does not allow them to fix themselves with some kind of combo or anything like that. Let's go over them anyways. So here we have an offensive Eumeris, who at level 35 only has 36 attack. She has 30 magic attack. So one thing that's interesting about them is that they have good physical and magic attack, and it's almost similar. But the big problem really is they don't have magical attacks or hybrid attacks. So like elves and other things that have hybrid attacks tend to leverage mixed attributes really well, whereas this class has no way of accessing like hybrid attacks. There's no hybrid sword that hits with physical and magical at the same time. There's things like Runic Blade, but it doesn't use its own attack to leverage the physical side of it. It only uses the magical side. So offensively, they're just kind of weak. Health-wise, their health is like average, which is fine. Their accuracy is above average. Evasion is really good. That's like their main thing that they're good at. Guard rate is decent for base guard rates, and then of course initiative is average to above average. All right, details. So as a party leader, just like with all flyers, you ignore terrain and trap effects. They have base 150 mobility, and they have 4 stamina, and they are a sword, shield, flying angel. So unfortunately though, if they're the party leader, they have very low stamina and they do not benefit from the road. So you can speed boost them to get them to attack a boss over like a mountain or something, or over terrain. But generally, without speed boosts, if they're just competing with other things like mounted units on the ground on roads, they're going to be significantly slower from just moving in between positions without speed boosts. And even with speed boosts, things on the road are just insanely fast. So we're talking like 3 to 4 times the movement speed. It's pretty crazy. All right, what else? Let's look at the abilities. So Spiral Sword. This inflicts evasion -20, grants evasion +20. It's single hit and it's ranged. Now, in this game, column, row attacks, and board attacks that hit every single enemy on the board, are typically going to be better because they just hit and kill and damage more things, and a class that lacks those or lacks access to them is going to suffer as a result, because everything else that has access to these multi-hit attacks is typically going to outdamage and outperform them. So this is really the issue that Feathersword has. So like Shield Smite is basically the exact same attack as Spiral Sword, except it reduces defense and increases defense. Honed Slash, this is their big attack, but unfortunately it's very weak, and I tried to squeeze as much damage as humanly possible, and I was trying to play around with this build to get something working for them, and I'll go over that in a second. But it's 70 potency times 3, so 210 potency. Becomes True Strike if user is buffed, and it's easy to get these things buffed. Accelerate, this is generally a waste of passive points. It activates after an enemy attacks, so this is like reactive, and it makes them more accurate, which usually doesn't matter. And it also gives them +20 initiative, which can be okay, I guess, but typically they're not going to be slow. Like, their initiative is going to be decent, so this solves a problem they don't really have, I would say. Diurnal Guard activates for being hit by a physical attack. This is just a basic block. If they get hit, they block with Medium Guard, grants the user +1 passive point during the day. So this can refresh itself during the day, which is nice, and 50% damage reduction is what you get with a Medium Guard. And being an evasion tank, they are very tanky in a way, as long as they don't get True Strike with like Unguardable, which is very rare. So typically they don't die to True Strikes on like other evasion tanks. So they're more tanky, but they just kind of lack support and damage. So they're just kind of like a thing that just survives. Whereas other things can do a similar level of survival, like have similar levels of survivability, but they also just do more and bring more to the table. Discharge activates before attacking with an active skill. Consume all of the user's buffs. Increase attack power for 1 attack, and its number of consumed buffs times 25%. Now, if you stack buffs on this and then use Discharge, it can give you some bigger damage, but you really have, like, other classes can just one-shot. They don't need to do all this stuff and to waste all these buffs and stuff like this. So like, this is really the issue with this class. I have this on quick impetus, you'll see why in a second, or what I'm going for. And then they have haste, which negates allies' battle wait time. So if you lose a battle, like if you've already lost and you're waiting, it doesn't get rid of it. But if you use it beforehand and you were to lose, it's basically like planning on losing a battle. I don't think it's very good at all. I think it's just objectively worse than other things. All right, so here was the build I was going for. I gave her some of the best things in the game. I gave her Nodo's Sword, which gives you 25 attack, a knit plus 10, evasion plus 10 to kind of play into the evasion tanking. Gives her +1 action point. I gave her Hero's Medallion, which is extremely competitive in terms of who wants it. It's very sought after. Every physical unit wants this. Physical attack plus 20, base AP and PP plus 1. And then Vorpal Shield for a little bit of health and initiative, mostly for the initiative. And then White Cat Ear Hood so that she can at least be a combo piece, so that she can impetus something and she can hone slash something twice. And if she gets a buff, she has True Strike on her hone slash. Unfortunately, even with 68 attack, it's just not enough damage. This is... Alright, so let me go over a scenario that I just went through. Alright, so she was attacking a level 40 Shaman. Now, if she were to level up 5 times, it truly wouldn't make that much of a difference. Maybe she has slightly higher damage. The enemy Shaman had like 100 something health, like 160 health. Now maybe that's like a boss enemy, so maybe that's not fair. So she might kill something. But essentially, here's how the fight went down. I went to hone slash something, and she did 66 damage total, 22 times 3, with Powerful Call, no debuff, and I think she was also Mystic Confurled. So, kinda disappointing, honestly, like the damage output. Now, it might have been because the enemy was a boss, but I've had my squads that one round, like I also had other units in there that were going to kill these enemies and stuff, but it's just that you have low damage potential. And even with like the best gear in the game and like, you know, True Strike, Mystic Confurl, and Powerful Call and Hone Slash, it did almost no damage to a Shaman. It didn't even kill a Shaman. It did 66 damage total, which is really, really low. Now other things can get way higher damage outputs, but this class I feel like just struggles to deal damage. And also it's like, maybe if she was like critting or something, it would be better. Obviously it would be, like crits are more damage, but it's just really hard to squeeze things out of this class. So I think you really have like a few options with this. You can just go for, let's say we don't even want to go for a big thing. Let's say we get rid of this and she just like uses impetus or something. So you could have this be like an impetus bot in the back line that's just tanky, that can go for shield smites to reduce enemy stats. Now obviously you wouldn't want Nodo's Sword for this. You would want something else. Now Nodo's Sword gives initiative, so anything that gives initiative would be fine. Even Bandit's Longsword, but anything that gives like some initiative so that she can be faster. You could also do like a spam build. I'll show that in a second. Let's see, initiative. I guess Vorpal, something like Vorpal. So get some initiative, and then you could just be shield smiting, quick impetus. Now, is this the best use case for an impetus bot? Definitely not. There's certainly stronger things. So let's see, what else could you do with this? You could do like a follow-up build. You could try it. So for example, we could grab Hunter's Claymore, Hunter's Shield, Hunter's Buckler, and then we can go... Now this would be like the highest damage you could squeeze out of this class. Now there are certainly better things for this build, for sure, because you want damage for this build. Alright, so heroes... Actually, no, we can't even get away with heroes here. We would have to do Sapphire. And then Wide Pursuit. So you could Wide Pursuits, spam, and then you would have 2 shield smites. So you'd help debuff when you act, and then she immediately Wide Pursuits for some chip damage. It's not going to hit really hard. You want something with as high a physical attack as possible, but at the very least you get plus 40% follow-up attack damage. So this Wide Pursuit would actually be 115%, which is decent. Now you could also do something a little bit more interesting. If you want to get some huge pursuit hits. Now, this class does not deal much damage, so even though we're stacking damage, it's still not going to do that much with the best stuff. Now, if you were to run this on like Amalia, it'd deal pretty good damage because she has really high physical attack compared to everyone else. I think she has the highest in the game. But we would run something, where's the earrings? Pursuit earrings. So this gives you 80% more pursuit damage, and then you also strip buffs from targets. You would have 2 of these, and then you also have 2 attacks. So you strip 2 buffs and deal seemingly decent damage instantly off of the attacks of faster things, and then you can also shield smite to further reduce enemy defenses. So it's okay, or you could just hone slash once, and if you catch like a powerful call, you get a true strike. So you do 2 follow-up attacks, strip buffs, they deal okay damage, and then you hone slash. But honestly, this class just lacks damage potential in its actual stats and its abilities, so unfortunately it's just really hard to combo into. It just has like a lot of like, it doesn't have good passives at all, like discharge. I wish discharge gave you a buff and then consumed buffs, so it could at least combo off of itself, because like setting up a discharge, there's no big sword attacks too, that's the issue really. If there were some like row sword attacks, this is the biggest sword attack from Gale Cutter. Attack 2 enemies, plus 80 potency versus flying, it's ranged. That's it. Everything else is single hits. This is the highest damage of the single hits. You have poison, you have burn, you have lifesteal, you have magic attack. What else? That's really it. There's not too much in swords. There's like the frozen swords and stuff like that, but they don't do that much damage. It's not like lances, where there's lances that have row stun, or axes which also have row stun, which allows you to, at the very least, contribute to shutdown. But that's it for Feathersword. Overall, it's a okay class. It's really good in the early game with Oaklease, but beyond that, it starts to fall off damage-wise, and other things are just way more appealing and just have better abilities. It needs something better. Honestly, I feel like Hone Slash should be a row attack, and then we're talking. If this was a row attack, these could be good, and you could like crit boost it and stuff, and go for some interesting things. But unfortunately, because it's single hit, 2 active points for a single hit that does 210 potency is very weak in this game, compared to things like Berengaria, who for 1 action point can hit 150 potency versus afflicted plus row stun. It's like, it's not even close. They need something more in their kit. If I were to buff these, I would change some of their abilities. I would make Hone Slash a row attack. I would also make it crit if the user's buffed, because they desperately need damage. Their damage is really bad. This would at least give them a big thing to do to justify using them. I would change Discharge so that you do not lose, either you do not lose the buffs and you gain 1, or you gain a buff and then you lose them all, but it lasts for the entire battle. Lasting for 1 attack on a class that has no damage potential for 1 big hit, like the best thing you can really do is do like a huge Hone Slash where you have all these buffs on you, but even so, the pace of combat is too fast. Like, things die too quickly to ever leverage this. Like 3 to 4 of the enemies are going to be dead before you're even discharging, and by then the last thing is probably almost dead like itself. So you were to Hone Slash that with this huge damage bonus after, you know, trading attacks between the enemy team and your team, they're probably already almost dead. So it doesn't really matter, unfortunately. But yeah, that's it for this one. Definitely like and subscribe if you found this useful, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.